Hi, welcome to Shamanism, Metaphysics, and Grace. I'm Lauren Hubele, and I'll be your host today, along with Jyoti Wind, who I'll be interviewing about her practices in shamanism. Jyoti, welcome.
Hi, Lauren. Good morning.
Jyoti, we've got a pretty cool topic today, and I've been thinking about it all morning and can't wait to explore with you. But before we dive in, how about you open this sacred space?
Thank you. Thank you. I will. Grandmothers and grandfathers of the East, we call to you. We ask for your insights into our lives, that we may make good choices. Grandmothers and grandfathers, spirits of the South, awaken our passion, place our feet on the right path, that we walk in truth. Grandmothers and grandfathers, hailing spirits of the West, we call to you. We ask your assistance in teaching us how to receive what is right for us at the time. Grandmothers and grandfathers, wisdom keepers of the North, we call to you. We ask for your wisdom, the ability to see, to really see what we look upon. Grandfather Sky, we ask for your protection and your blanket of wisdom. Grandmother Earth, we thank you for the cells that you've provided for us to inhabit. We ask for your reminder of our own mercy and compassion. And to that wise self inside of us, may that part of us that lives in our heart also be engaged.
Beautiful, Jyoti. So, we have a very interesting topic on shadow.
Yes. Yes. So I thought it might be an interesting look at ourselves. We function in the day-to-day and we do what we do. And yet, as human beings, we project. We are projectors. We project onto other people, onto life situations, the unwanted or disowned parts of ourselves. So I'd like to start with reading something I wrote right at the beginning of the pandemic, actually, called The Shadow. How do I own my shadow? We all have a blind side, a part of ourselves we can't see. It gets jealous of another's success, pleasure, and riches. It knows it can do even better, but it doesn't. It's frozen in unconsciousness. How do we bring it to conscious awareness? We can see it playing out on the world stage all around us. We wear the white hats, and we know who wears the black hats. Other superpowers, minorities, women, the differently abled. Prejudices, bigotry, and betrayal. These things live in us, and once you can own it, you are free. Ask inside of yourself at night before you sleep to that wise self to show the shadow to you so that you can make conscious choices about who you are and about how you conduct yourself.
Jyoti, thank you for sharing those beautiful words. I was really touched by that line. Once you own it, you can be free. And
Yes,
I think that's really the goal of this talk.
it is. It is, because if we're projecting out these unclaimed parts, these unconscious assumptions and blames and everything like that, then we're never fully whole. We're never owning all of our stuff, if you want to call it that, which includes all of our unconsciousness. And so we live a life that keeps us separate from everything around us because we're projecting ourselves out there, holding those people responsible. I mean, you know, in a situation when you've been accused of something that isn't who you are or how you believe yourself to be. And it's kind of like, wait a minute, that's not me. This must be a projection of that other person, and they're holding me responsible for something that lives in them. You know, it's like the zealot. Let me think of an example here. It's kind of floating in the background. It's like a zealot um, person who is against certain behaviors, you know, and then you come to find out that they secretly harbor those desires. They are that which they are trying
Yeah.
to assail, you
Yeah, we
know. I
see a
mean,
lot of that today. Yeah.
yes,
I
yes,
mean, throughout history we have, right?
yeah.
So, Jyoti, I love where we're headed. However, for our listeners, I want to back up a little bit.
Hmm.
And the reason I do is this morning in my swim, I have my dear friend Kevin, who sometimes hangs out at the river, and he asked me, "Where are you headed off to?" And I said, "Well, I'm recording a podcast on shadow." And Kevin said, "Shadow? What is that?" So let me ask you, Jyoti, how do you define that?
To me, the shadow is the unwanted parts of ourselves. So let's say you and a friend take a watercolor painting class, you know, and, you know, 6 weeks you do all this painting, learning, experimenting, creative self expression. And and then at the end of the 6 weeks, you put your paintbrushes away and you continue on with the way you normally live your life. But your friend continues. And all of a sudden, down the road, 6 months down the road, she's got this show in a gallery somewhere. People are buying her stuff, and you're looking at it and thinking, I could do so much better than that. But you didn't. You put your paintbrushes away. She continued. I mean, if jealousy comes up or if resentment comes up, that's the part of you that just didn't follow through in that particular example and became jealous of someone else's success because they did follow through. I mean, it's just one little example. You're projecting onto this other person things that you could have done yourself, and then kind of holding her responsible for something that has nothing to do with her life, you know? And so it's looking at the unexpressed, the unwanted, the places in ourselves that maybe as children we were told, well, that's not appropriate behavior. You can't do that. Society won't allow that, or this family won't allow that. And so you look at those things and you look at how you suppressed parts of yourself. Sometimes I think of it, you know, like our sister or brother, our, you know, selfish sister or cantankerous brother, you know, the parts of ourselves that carry those unwanted parts, because they don't go away. They just recess and then come out sometimes at trigger moments, inappropriate moments when somebody kind of unknowingly pokes at something in you, and all of a sudden here's this other part of you that's just, you know, flaming and raging, or, you know, wishing the worst.
Yeah. I think this begins in childhood, right? Where we start packing these parts of ourselves away. I immediately thought of my Catholic upbringing, and about, that dark side of ourself that, wants to take something or wants to say something or wants to feel a certain way that we're told is sinful or an awful part that we need to pack that away.
Yes, yes, yes. And even in religion itself, when you look at, oh, we're going to heaven, everybody else is going to hell, we need to pity them or pray for them. I mean, it sets you apart. It divides that good and bad, it brings that, I
Mm.
mean, and that place of duality we've talked about before. This earth life is that place of duality. So again, we are here with the good and the bad, the acceptable and the unacceptable, the owned and the disowned parts of ourselves. And as we go into the world with these parts of ourselves that have shame around them, or sinfulness around them, or heavy judgment around them, we're not fully expressing ourselves because we've been made to think that those parts of ourselves are not okay.
Yeah, and they don't always have to be bad or negative. This reminds me of some of the teachings from the shamanic practitioner Jane Burns, who talks about the contrived self, right?
Yes,
And so that's the self that's been formed over with culture and family, and then but we have these other parts in of us are that we've hidden, and those parts could be the part that always wanted to be the dancer
yes,
or always wanted to be the writer but was told, and those aren't ways to earn money, let's pack that away, that's not really a respectable career.
right, absolutely. Also, if you've been shamed by your creative,
Mm,
around your creative self, by your family who maybe just didn't have that awareness of what creative energy looks like and how it feeds the soul and how it expresses and is part of creation. You're creating in the same manner that you were created, in a sense. You're using that energy. And so you not only maybe doubt it, but you begin to feel that maybe you're not capable, that you don't have the capacity to be creative, or that it's not something, as you said, that holds any worth. And look at the artists that push past all of that, or whose creativity was really supported and loved into being, you know.
yeah. Yeah, Jyoti, I want to go back actually to your example of the two women in the art class, because what's coming up for me is the one that packed away could very well have received messages growing up that, well, this is play. Unless you're excellent at it, you shouldn't do it, or whatever messages she was given, right?
Right.
And so, and then what caused her to strike out, right? And that jealousy is that it really was a part that she longed for,
Yes.
but she
Yes.
had realized.
Yeah. Yeah. Knowing that she could have done the same if she had been true to herself.
This is it. That's it.
If she had been true to herself and her own path, in a sense, her own self expression, instead of whatever was running through, the background noise, the subconscious tape loops, telling her, well, that was fine. That was a class. That was 6 weeks. We're done. Now I get back to my real life.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We all have so many stories we tell us of what looks like what work is and
Yes.
what work isn't, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I remember something I read recently that I kind of chuckled over. It was that, if you're having these conversations with yourself all the time, you might as well make it enjoyable. If we're telling ourselves all this stuff all the time, we might as well make it so that we can really support ourselves and how good we are. I mean, not from an ego preening point of view, but just from a a basic support, of feeling good about who you are and what you do.
Yeah. Which I think that's really uh, the premise of shamanism, among so many things, is this accepting ourselves as the whole, like the whole. And along with that, we're accepting that we're a part of nature, and that it's all, whether there isn't good and bad, it's the whole.
Yes, it's the whole. And I think that starts with caring about our wholeness,
Yeah.
caring about who we are and what we bring into this world, what we carry, what our service is. I mean, when you're in service to other people and life, it's like all those differences kind of fall away, whatever those differences you've created, as a mindset. Um, they fall away because you're just here, in a sense, to help, to serve, and especially to yourself, to those parts that you have packed away, as you say, and bringing them out and exploring your own totality allows you to, I think, feel more tuned into the totality of all of it.
Right. Because when we can fully accept ourselves, we can fully accept all the parts of others.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Jyoti, last week we talked about this self-love and the importance, and you led such a beautiful guided meditation there. So, I'm a listener, and I said, yeah, I can love all this part of myself, but there's still this part that feels really yucky, and I have to just turn that off. That's not something I want to deal with. That's why we're here today, and that's the conversation. So how do I even identify this part, and then what can I do about it?
I think that a very simple way of learning about what those parts of ourselves that we don't see is to just ask inside of yourself when you go to bed at night. I want to see those parts of myself I don't see. And I really feel like so I'm going to digress here, and I've probably spoken about this before as far as ritual goes. The unconscious doesn't speak English or whatever your native tongue happens to be. It doesn't speak in words, it speaks in images. And so I think that when we do a ritual, a simple ritual of placing things on an altar or on a windowsill or on a dresser, whatever you have, and maybe light a candle there and have a small bowl of water there. The unconscious looks at the images and says, oh, okay, something important's happening here. You have our attention, you have our assistance. What is it you want? What do you want help with? And so as we maybe put a picture of a shadow, or of a light and dark kind of image to show the difference, or have an image of oneness, of unity, whatever that happens to be for you, I think that then the unconscious steps forward and says, oh, now we know what she wants. We can help with this. I mean, this is overly simplified, but it's giving a way of beginning to work with the shadow, asking into yourself when you go to bed at night, picturing something in your mind. This is what I want to work with.
Well, that can come up spontaneously too, of course. But I am a strong believer in asking those important questions, very clear, very direct, and having answers revealed. Dreams are a beautiful way to begin working with your shadow.
Yes. And also remember that what you ask for, you get.
Yeah.
So, yes. And so, as you ask for those parts to be revealed, they may show up in ways that might be a little bit of a surprise sometimes. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, this is what I'm dealing with. Okay. How do I own this? How do I work with this? I see I got triggered. I see my response. That's not how I want my life to be, or that is what was passed down through DNA and example in a family line. How do I heal that in me? How does that stop in me so that I'm not passing it on to the generations below me?
Yeah. I mean, that's the big why we do this, right?
Yes, it's to heal.
Exactly. Jyoti, I was thinking for some folks listening, they may think dream work, wow, that's a stretch. I'll tell you what's not a stretch, but it's more painful, is being with your children. They're very good at showing you your shadow,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
I know I find myself now being so much more aware of this, like words coming out, and I say, I'm sorry, I don't know who's saying that. Let me just take it back.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Right?
Yes.
I don't know what woman is saying that. That's not your mother, I'm sure.
But you caught it, Lauren.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
caught it. You caught it immediately and said, okay, that's mine. That's mine to work with.
And doing the work with it, right? Because it's one thing just to make light of it, but it's another then on the drive home to go, wow, Lauren, what was that about?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I've been referring a book to people, to my clients, uh, if they're interested, and it's called Romancing the Shadow by Connie Zweig and Steve Wolf. And it just pretty much gives you examples in day to day life of how the shadow shows up in relationships with family and friends and workplace. And so it's not a tome. It's very readable.
Great. Oh, that's a
Yes.
great reference. Be sure to include that in the show notes there.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. So I thought I would lead a very
Perfect.
simple visualization, if that works.
That sounds great.
Okay. So if you would just take a nice deep breath and close your eyes and just let go of having to get this right or even knowing what you're doing. Just kind of relax into yourself. And in your mind screen, I want you to call up this altered self, this sister or brother that's been hidden away out of some necessity with family and society. And I want you to see this being, this other half of you, let's say, and introduce yourself. And perhaps in words or images or gestures, let this part of you know that you want to get to know it. This is like your other half. You want to get to know this part. You want to include him or her into your life so that your life is full, so that you are more conscious, more authentic, more aware of your relationships with other people because you're owning your own stuff and not projecting it onto the people around you and holding them responsible for it. Let this part of you know that there's love in your heart for this part of you that has had to remain behind the scenes for one reason or another. Maybe extend your hand in an invitation for her or him to step forward and to introduce themselves to you. So tell them that you will return. You will return to continue this conversation and this relationship, and that you're asking for their assistance in this relationship as well, so that you can become more whole with all your parts. And then just come back to yourself and open your eyes and be present.
Beautiful, Jyoti. Thank you.
I mean, we all have parts that, we don't know what their position is. So I want to give an example. It's kind of an odd one, but I want to give an example. So I was in the Hakomi training. It's a mindfulness-based psychotherapy training for a couple of years, a long time ago. And I remember the founder of Hakomi, the guy's name was Ron Kurtz. And he had been perhaps a massage therapist, but I know that he had a man on his table, and he decided that he wanted to call out the murderer in him, in this guy. So he backed up, stood by the door, Ron, and called out the murderer in this guy. And he was far enough away that if this guy came off the table in that part of himself, he was protected. And so I thought about that. And I thought about, how does the murderer live in me? If we all have all of these parts, how does the murderer live in me? And so I gave the murderer in me a job. And so that part of me stands at the time, stood right inside my door, guarding my sleeping children in the other part of the house, and that would be the part that someone coming in uninvited would meet. Do you know what I mean? We all have those parts, whether we own them or not is up to us. But that really showed me how to give a job, a position, a role for those different parts of us that's healthy, that's helpful to the wholeness of who we are.
And the more we can do that, the more whole we become.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. Anything else you'd like to share about shadow before we wrap up?
No, I think that's it.
This has been such an enjoyable journey. I've loved it. Great topic.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jyoti.
Okay.